I lived inside my brain as this little floating balloon attached by a string, period. I wasn't in my body. I didn't have any sort of connection with myself. I didn't like myself. Even though I was a person walking around like, you gotta love yourself. I didn't know what love was. I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't know what it felt like. And
Wow.
so that was the journey, really. But those first 6 months of like deciding were slow. It was a very intentional decision to become better, and then little tiny decisions every day.
Just a quick disclaimer. This episode contains brief mentions of suicide, drug use, and death. If you or someone you know is struggling, call or text the suicide hotline at 988. Thank you. Welcome to Natalie Saves the World, one podcast at a time. A space for honest conversations about mental health, self-love, relationships, living more consciously, finding clarity, and spreading light through all of life's challenges. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Natalie Saves the World, one podcast at a time. Today's guest is someone who carries both the professional tools of a therapist and the lived reality of someone doing the hardest healing work of her life in real time, in public, and by choice. Melissa Heppner is a licensed clinical social worker, therapist, podcast host as well, and speaker whose work centers on a deceptively simple idea. Quiet the noise, connect to yourself, and embody the light. She's the creator of healing workbooks like Safe to Be Seen and The Beauty of Imperfection, and the host of Emotionally Unavailable, her podcast. Melissa has navigated her own journey through complex PTSD and a mental health crisis, and that lived experience has always been at the heart of her work. But this past December, she faced something no framework fully prepares you for, the loss of her son, Jake, who was 18, to an accidental overdose involving a synthetic opioid that has since drawn national attention. Rather than go quiet, Melissa has chosen to grieve out loud, to show in real time what it looks like to survive the unimaginable when you have the tools and you believe you're enough. I'm really honored that she's here. Melissa, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I'm kind of one of those people who always knew I wanted to be in the helping field through a super traumatic childhood. Like, if anyone listening is familiar with the adverse childhood experiences questionnaire, I have the highest score possible: sexual abuse, physical abuse, foster
Oh,
care,
wow.
parents incarcerated, siblings institutionalized and incarcerated, sibling
Wow.
mental health, abandonment, all the things. My dad died of an overdose when I was 15, and then my mom
Oh,
died
wow.
when I was 22 and pregnant with my first child. I was
Oh,
one of
my
those
gosh.
super intelligent people who got married at 20. And so, yeah, just like
Wow.
this lifetime, like I say, I really didn't have a day of peace from birth to entering adulthood.
Wow.
And I thought getting away from my family of origin, because I moved out really quickly after turning 18, and struggled a little bit, but moved right in with a boy I met. So like I was like, oh yay, now it's adulthood. And I was kind of one of those people that, because my pain wasn't being lived out loud the way my brother's was, that like I felt my childhood experiences didn't really impact me. And so I went
Interesting.
along kind of okay in adulthood until it wasn't okay. Like, having children tends to bring out every little thing and put a spotlight on it. And so I had my first kid at 22, and then had my
Wow.
second one at around 27. Shifting into like the workforce after a divorce was kind of whenever I started to see, like, there was pressures that I was just, like, unaccustomed to learning how to handle and deal with. And so that was kind of my first entryway into understanding, like, I'm not necessarily like other people. Like, I just knew my
Right.
responses were different. And I had this programming because my grandma was who primarily raised me, because I had been trained and programmed to minimalize and intellectualize all of my experience and trivialize them to like just being a me problem. I'm just too sensitive, and
Right.
I'm too anything. I was just too much and not enough all at the same time. And I was a really reactive person. And so I was intensely afraid of conflict out in the real world. So I would freeze or fawn in public and then come home and just take everything out on anyone close to me. So I really
Mm,
carried around this narrative through my reactivity that I was a mean person. And
yeah.
so I thought if I could just be nicer, that was going to fix everything, with just having no idea where any of the root of that was. And so, like around 2017, I started learning about trauma as a thing that exists outside of the military. And because,
Right.
I was born in 1980. So, like, my little generation, we didn't start hearing about trauma except for PTSD and veterans until the very late 90s and very little. So I came
Right.
across the holistic psychologist, Dr. Nicole LaPera, on Instagram back in 2017 and started to learn where these responses were coming from. But that even all I could hear was regulate your nervous system, and here's how you regulate your nervous system. But I didn't understand why I was dysregulated to begin with. I didn't understand all of my wounding. I didn't understand all my shame. So the mental health crisis really happened. The pinnacle of it was October of 2023, where I was like, I am so exhausted of trying. I don't want to keep doing this. I had a full belief that everyone in my life, specifically my children, especially my children, were better off without me, because my reactivity was just creating so much pain in everyone.
Oh,
That was my belief, like yes, I did lots of things wrong, but I was really being my harshest critic. And so I decided I wasn't going to try anymore. And so, like, I actually created a plan to end it. And within that
oh
plan,
no.
because I was like, well, okay, let's pick a date. And my oldest son's birthday was just like a week or two away from then. So I was like, oh, okay, it's got to be after that. But then it's Christmas. Oh, and then the next kid's birthday. And then the next. So I picked a date really far out. And because I did that, it allowed a little bit of space to be like, if I'm going to make it to that date at all, like, it's really important to me that I make it to that date, because I don't want to ruin birthdays and Christmas.
Wow.
I have to figure something out. And I just became really committed to figuring it out. So 2 years down the line, I'm, well, I guess close to 2.5 now. That's where I am today, is, I mean, still figuring stuff out.
Wow. So you were planning your own unliving.
Mm-hmm.
And how did you get out from that deep, dark place? Like, what specifically helped you? Because that's a very dark place to be in. But what specifically would you say, like, what can you attribute to getting you out of that deep, dark place? Yeah.
Totally valid question. But I do want to pause really quick and say, like, it doesn't matter if it's the big T traumas or the little T traumas. It will be your entire world in this immersive experience when we don't have the people there to help us walk through really important emotional developmental milestones. So in the early days, it was very slow because I still didn't have the right information. Like, I was learning. Thankfully, like, if I'm being 1,000% honest, what really helped me to anchor into the fact that there was hope to hold on to,
Yeah.
I started getting really into astrology and felt someone said to me, like, well, some people believe that astrology is more like a blueprint and not like just personality traits, like that
Hmm.
you have these traits because this is like your lesson in life or whatever. So
Ah.
honestly, I know that's not for everyone, but for me, it was like an anchor in the storm, because I was like, I'm perpetually addicted to TikTok. Like, I'm not even gonna lie about it, but I was following a bunch of astrologers and doing like new moon rituals and full moon rituals, like just things like identity auditing. Like, it's
Hmm.
not like I was out there, doing any super weird stuff, but like, it just causes you to look at the patterns in your life. And so I was doing that, wailing all the time. I had no skills, no tolerance, nothing. I mean, like, my family was so scared because for the first time in my life, I was crying, and I recognized it as the only thing I knew to do to regulate. And I mean, I was sobbing for hours every day, but it actually helped. Like, it would just numb me out enough to where, like, okay, one more day. I knew I needed to slowly start shifting things in my life. Like, if I want different,
Hmm.
I have to be different. And to be different, my environment's going to need to change. I was in a very toxic job. So I put in my notice, like, during that time,
Hmm.
like in January, I think I put in because I worked in a school. So I was like, I will not be back. And then I got really into creative projects because I didn't view myself as a creative person, but I was, just by happenstance, someone I know wanted to create, like, do their own self-publishing of a children's book, but didn't know like how the process was. So I did it to show her it was possible. I created some children's books in there and self-published them. I would spend hours like designing those and, learning how to format. And I made other books. So I'm not recommending that you buy this book, but I did a cute little like how-to guide for like young women, like, just little quick pieces of advice with pretty aesthetically pleasing pictures, but I had fun. I learned how to design book covers. That was super fun for me. So I
Wow.
just got into some creativity. And that was the first time I ever was able to access like a flow state
Mm.
where I could get lost in something. And if I'm lost in this activity, I'm not in this very loud brain that is
Yeah.
constantly on loop telling me what a horrible person I am. So it was slow. Like energetically, I still felt so heavy all of the time, but I was shifting, just these small shifts. And then once I left my job and I had started the podcast, it's truly the people I've met on there that have given me the information that saved my life. So the first really
Amazing.
big eye-opening shift that changed everything for me was I had a guest on that taught me about, she works for the guy who wrote this book. She's a therapist and he's like her trainer.
Hmm.
And he has developed the Finding Peace method. And he has this little workbook called the Finding Peace Workbook. And it was everything I needed because he broke shame down into different archetypes. And I
Mm.
was like, oh my God, I'm not crazy, because he was identifying, like clearly laying out what these different archetypes say to you. And it made all this noise in my head make sense, because I was like, why am I fighting with myself like this? Like, one would be like, Melissa, you know better than that. Like, why are you doing that? And then immediately I'd come back with, yeah, but I wouldn't have done that if they hadn't done such and such and such that. And now it's, I understand that was never me to begin with. That was my grandma. That was my aunt.
Wow.
That was all the people who programmed me to feel shame. At my
Yeah.
core, I don't feel any of those things about myself, but I didn't know how to like stop it. So that book impacted me greatly. So I got a hold of that probably sometime May or June
What
of
was the name of the book,
the
just for the
Finding
listeners?
Peace Workbook by Troy Love. It's like $25 on Amazon. That book changed my life. But that was that was it. Like once I was able to quiet the noise, because then I could actually work on grounding. I could work on presence and mindfulness. But up until then, I lived inside my brain as this little floating balloon attached by a string, period. I wasn't in my body. I didn't have any sort of connection with myself. I didn't like myself. Even though I was a person walking around like, you gotta love yourself. I didn't know what love was. I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't know what it felt like. And
Wow.
so that was the journey, really. But those first 6 months of like deciding were slow. It was a very intentional decision to become better, and then little tiny decisions every day. But it looked a lot like crying. It looked a lot like I'm still reactive. It looked a lot like laying in bed and not being able to do anything. But I was determined, like, I'm going to make it. And I had hope.
Wow. Was there one particular moment that changed everything for you, or was it more just a gradual process? Little by little, you were starting to see a change.
So it started gradual, and then through one of those identity audits, I kind of had this whole spiritual awakening, because I was Dr. LaPera, holistic psychologist. She preaches a lot about future self journaling. I was never very consistent with my hygiene, but I was trying. And so I was getting more into that. Like that would, the peace that I would feel imagining this future version of me and whatever, it would help me. So I did a lot of that. But through the identity audit, I was writing down the characteristics of like who I want to be. And then you kind of look at what the incongruence is. Like where am I trying to be and why am I not that? What is the difference between me and that? And I kind of thought, well, I am already all these things. Like I'm already all these things. And
Right.
I just am also reactive. Like I'm
Hmm.
also other things, but that doesn't mean that I'm not these really wonderful things that I'm trying so hard to become. And it occurred to
Yeah.
me that I was working so hard to be this very Zen, Buddha, unbothered person. But in that moment, because of the mental health crisis, I had finally learned how to stand up for myself. Like I did not care how, like, I was very confrontational with these toxic people I was working with. And in a way I was proud of. Like I felt
Hmm.
good that I was finally not doing the passive aggressive circumventing that I'd ever done, not doing all the petty stuff. Because listen, I could tangle with a narcissist all day because I had a lot of narcissistic qualities and was raised by somebody with a lot of narcissistic qualities. So I would
Mm.
engage in that spiral all day just because I was going to win, right? I engaged in that toxicity at all levels. So when I decided, like, no, I'm going to say how I feel, which learning that I was an Aries rising really did help me. But I
Haha.
like really got into like, no, I'm fire, man. And I finally like embraced that fire. So during that audit, I was like, why am I trying to be this totally unbothered person? Like, I just learned how to hold this fire. I don't want to extinguish it.
Yeah.
The awakening that came from that, like, it's an epiphany and your entire paradigm changes and you feel it from the inside out. Like, I felt an unraveling. Like, I felt like I was in that movie, The Butterfly Effect, where I went to a past experience and changed the future. That's what it felt like. I felt like I had been taken apart and put back together. And
Wow.
then I had a bunch of those. Like that was happening several times every day because I was so committed to change and to growth and to evolution that I was
Wow.
getting really curious about every single one of my reactions. And I now have information that tells me my brain's a liar. I don't have to listen to anything it says. So at first it was slow and then it was very rapid. Like so much so that I was like, is this psychosis? Like I wasn't sure because my paradigm was just changing so quickly. But I
Wow.
think that that really just speaks to like if you are committed and you learn your brain's a liar and you don't have to listen to anything it says and you just get curious about why you do and think and feel the way you do, you can
Yeah.
have those shifts really fast.
I've heard people refer to it as the bitches in the attic. Yeah.
Absolutely. Hmm.
Oh, that's so interesting. So first of all, regarding the zodiac, so
Yeah.
what are all your three signs, like your sun, moon, and rising? And maybe could you explain that a little bit for the audience, like what each of those mean? Your sun sign,
Sure.
your moon sign, and your rising sign?
Okay, so I'm going to start with my moon because it's been the biggest crux of my life. I am a Leo moon.
Me too. I love
Oh
it.
my God, girl. No, I keep
Same.
attracting Leo moon, so I
I
totally love
love
that.
Leos. Like I've always gotten so I'm a Cancer. My sun sign is Cancer. My moon is Leo, and I've always really gotten along with Leos. So I feel like that kind of explains it. And also, I have red hair, like that's very lion-like. And Leos always have great hair, and I just feel like I have a lot of Leo quality. Like I act much more like a Leo than a Cancer.
Yeah.
But
Is your North Node in Leo?
I'm not that granular on my sign.
Yeah.
My rising is Taurus. My
Ah,
sun
okay.
is Cancer and my moon, but maybe let's explain for the audience in case they don't know like what the sun, moon, and
Yeah.
rising are.
So your sun,
Your sun sign.
yeah, your sun sign really, like I'm a Gemini.
Interesting.
So it really kind of is your essence is the best way to say it. But your rising sign is your identity. Like, and it really kind of determines. So, like an Aries
Oh.
rising, Aries deals with self.
Hmm.
And it is the first of the zodiac. So it's the most immature and it has the most to learn, but it's the beginning too.
Of the
Um,
cycle.
Yes. And
Right.
so, but it really deals with the self and the shadow side, the part that really just like you have to figure out for yourself is like self-centeredness and selfishness. And so learning how to view those things differently, put yourself first, but from a place of love and compassion for yourself and others, not from martyrdom, not from being too harsh, not from those places, but just like, yeah, I realize to love myself, that means I'm gonna have to say no to people. Like Aries, super passive aggressive people. We are like as
Mm,
fiery as we are pretty non-confrontational. We
pretty
love a
chill.
passive aggressive. We love to be petty. We are some petty queens, but also we're reactive. So I really identify more with my rising sign, although I'm a Gemini, which is why I have two podcasts and why I get so lit up from
Gemini is the
talking.
twins for anyone who doesn't know the
Yeah,
two
there's so much
personalities.
duality, so much duality. But Leo Moon, where I really see that show up is I really victimized myself so much. I had a full belief that I loved everyone else more than they loved me, that I showed up for others better than
Mm,
they showed up for me. I had real visibility wounding. I felt misunderstood, felt like I wasn't seen, which of course, because I was wearing like 400 masks. And so I couldn't even see myself. And then that's why I would be like, you don't see me. Well, of course they don't. Like, I'm not giving them the real me. I don't even want to
Right.
see me. How are they going to see me? But where it really showed up is like, especially in relationships, is like, well, if I have to choose whose experience here matters more, it's gonna be mine. So, like, really, my
Mm,
feelings are more important than yours. That
interesting.
has been a huge lesson for me, is to see all the ways that I victimize myself. So, I think that when I think Leo, as much as I also think sun and vibrant and just heart of gold and all of those things, I also think ego. And when we lead from a place of ego,
Mm,
that's a wounded child. So
yeah.
I see Leos in that joy and magnetism that they have. They're very childlike, and that's associated with ego too. So I see that
Interesting.
being the issue with a lot of Leos, specifically Leo moons, is that we're very little wounded children who view the world through those wounds. And so knowing those three things really helped me, because if all I have to do is understand something and then work through it, great. But I think that's why astrology really helped me, is I felt a blueprint. I felt like it made so many things make sense. And again,
Yeah.
it just affirmed I'm not crazy. I'm not defective. I'm not bad. I just have to figure this stuff out. Like, how do I
Yeah.
navigate this terrain? Okay, I can do
Right.
that. Like, give me a roadmap. I can do that. But like, just feeling like I was flailing all the time, it was so catastrophic.
Yeah. By the way, for the audience, could you explain? So the moon sign is kind of how you see yourself.
Well, moon is emotions, how you deal with emotions. So,
Oh,
like, your moon is really associated with your mother. So, like, I'm a Leo moon. Interestingly, my mother was a Leo sun. But
oh,
but
interesting.
what it would say about, like, if I'm a Leo moon, that means I had emotionally immature caregivers, like that couldn't
Interesting.
see beyond there. Your sun oftentimes is associated with your dad. So, like, my dad, a little bit emotionally unavailable. He was an Aquarius, so he was real intellectual, like a Gemini would be. So, really, you can tell a lot about how a person was raised just by looking at their sun and moon sign, because, like, there's a few that if you see, you're like, oh, your mama was tough. Pretty much, if you have an
Ah,
air sign moon, you know that person had really emotionally unavailable.
mother.
But
Mm,
like, if you see like a Virgo moon, which my oldest child is, overly critical mother.
interesting.
And all oldest children get overly critical mothers. So,
Well,
you
this
know,
is true. Yeah, tends to be. And the rising sign, so I thought the moon was also kind of how we see ourselves, the moon sign.
mm-mm.
Because I feel like
I
I
mean,
see
obviously,
myself
if
as a Leo
you,
more than a Cancer. I am a bit of both, but I
well,
have,
if you think about it though, the way you handle emotions and your
right,
emotional world is your inner world. So of
right.
course, like, if that's what lands for you, like, I really identify with my Leo moon too, because your inner world is what's created from all those subconscious narratives. So what we do as humans is we have to, like, literally have to make our outer world match our inner world. So,
Yeah,
whatever your inner world is, you're going to behaving in a subconscious manner that makes your outer world match that. So, yeah, I mean,
right.
it's okay that you like really identify, because I really identify with my Leo moon, and I feel more like close to Leos than I ever have in my life.
The same.
I mean,
Rising,
it is kind of like that.
the rising or ascendant is that's how others perceive you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like
The
what
first
you're
impression,
presenting. Like
the
what,
mask.
yeah. Yeah. And so
Mm,
it's so much deeper than that. But yes, that's a really great way to explain it, is like, this is the way you are perceived by others, that energy, because your rising kind of is the beginning of your blueprint, like
and
where all of these little placements go is attached to that rising.
the rising also has to do with, you said, like our purpose on this earth or our life path.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
And has
also
to,
with the North nodes and things like that. But yeah, the rising really does dictate kind of what path you chose to be here for.
so I'm not sure if you're familiar with Kabbalah, like it's the thing that
Very
Madonna
little.
studies.
I've heard some.
Okay, so I actually study Kabbalah. Similar to you, I had a very just difficult experience, and that's also what inspired me to do this podcast. As many of us are, we want to share our stories with the world. I was in a very long 7-year relationship. I thought my ex was, the love of my life. I thought we'd grow old together. I thought we'd have grandkids together. I won't get into all the whole story because I've shared this already on the podcast. But long story short, I was also very, very depressed. I wasn't quite suicidal, but I was just in a very, very dark place. I lost a lot of hope. I felt like that was my whole future. And suddenly, my whole future in a moment, in an instant, was gone. And I was devastated. So I actually turned to Kabbalah wisdom. It's just interesting that you turned to Zodiac because actually, Kabbalah talks a lot about zodiac as well. It talks a lot about, it's like very woo woo, but it talks a lot about the soul, like the concept of your soul. And if you're not into like traditional religion, so technically it's for all religions, like it's just, it is like ancient biblical wisdom, but it's for everyone. And basically, they talk a lot about zodiac and they talk about this concept of, they call it tikkun, which is basically your soul's correction. So they say that like our soul is here on earth in order to correct something from a past life. And it also has to do with your rising sign. So that's so interesting. Like, it sounds like there's a big connection there because that's exactly what my teacher, my Kabbalah teacher told me that my tikkun, like my soul's correction, what I need to work on in this life before I can go ascend. They call it like the upper world. They say that basically it has to do with your rising sign. So my rising sign is in Taurus.
So lots of self-worth stuff.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I will let you know that. Yeah. A lot of it has to do with like my inner child, abandonment in childhood, not feeling loved, not feeling good enough. I'm very self-critical. But it's so interesting because you turn to Zodiac and I turn to Kabbalah, which is also very related to Zodiac because exactly it gave me hope again, like kind of explaining why I'm here and like my wider purpose on this earth. And it gave me hope that like, oh, wow, like I'm here to do something much bigger. And the reason that my relationship didn't work out is because he was not aligned with this path that I'm truly meant to be on. Like the future that I'm here to pursue and that my soul's correction on this earth that I need to work on. If we would have stayed together, I would have never worked on it.
Right.
So that gave me hope. And it sounds quite similar to like everything you've gone through. I mean, at least somewhat.
Yeah. In astrology, like if you get pretty into the woo, it's really tied to all of the things that you're talking about. Like,
Yeah.
I've dabbled in all of it, you know, like I've never like committed to anything, but it's like I'll feel something intuitively and then learn about it. Like it's weird. And because like on my show, I try to have a good mix of like grounded tools and woo-woo tools. You know what I mean? Like,
yes, same.
I like to bring it like if there's a way to tie it into science for the skeptics, I try
Psychology.
to, you know, but like also for me
spiritual
personally,
side.
I'll lean into any of it because it really does make me feel hope. Like I can ground in the fact that I'm supposed to experience this and that I chose it. I chose this experience. I was really resistant to that at first. Like I went to a medium because I wanted to connect with my dead parents. And I was like, I just want to know if they're proud of me. And he was the first person that explained like the idea that like we choose this existence and we choose who our parents are. We choose our struggles, you know, all of that. And I was super resistant to that. I was really triggered and I was like, okay. But I had the like good sense and the intuitive like thought of that doesn't resonate with me right now, but I'm not gonna poo-poo it away. I'm gonna hold it in a bag over here. I'm pissed that he said it, but like also there may be something to that. And as I got deeper into astrology and started to hear certain things, I was like, I can believe that. And listen, we all get to pick our belief system. So like pick one, pick something that doesn't teach you to feel unworthy of everything. And like religion really is a huge trigger for me still. I wish it wasn't because, well, I don't like the control that it has over me.
Yeah, the dogma of it, I think many people don't necessarily agree with, but the deeper meaning or like the God concept, which you can call it the universe, you can call it God, but some kind of like divine being or divine intervention, wider mission. I feel like that's the whole point. Like that's the main, and people get that wrong. I think people really focus on the dogma or the little rules and nitty gritty.
Whereas like the thing that spirituality has really afforded me is the idea of oneness. Because I started to see I'm no different than anybody else and nobody else is different than me. Whereas part of the journey is making that connection back to yourself and back to like our fellow humans because all of the trauma and all of the hurt and all of the fear creates more and more and more separation between us and everyone around us. Like I was spending my whole life building walls between me and all the people that I loved. I mean, The
Yeah.
relationship difficulties that I have had with this husband and the one I married at 20 really is about trust. I am so afraid to hand my trust over to someone because I feel like I might be destroyed if you break the
Yeah.
trust. Because when I was a kid, that betrayal hurt way too much, and I never want to feel that betrayal again. Well, now I understand betrayal is a part of life, and I get to determine what I'm going to do when I feel betrayed. I can feel
Yeah.
it, process it, and then my next step can be, oh, right, but I am enough. I'm enough to do this. This isn't going to destroy me.
Yeah.
And
You're
honestly,
only
like,
given what you can handle, I think.
yeah. Well, I
Mm.
mean, some people don't make it. Some people don't make it. And I feel like I almost didn't. I questioned,
Yeah.
like, with my parents, like, did they not pass their test? Or, and like, that was an early exit? Or was that always part of the design? You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
of course, I've asked questions like that related to my son. In my heart of hearts, I believe this was what he was going to do. Like, I think this was inevitable for him. But I'm
Wow.
also willing to concede that that could be a coping mechanism. You know what I mean?
I'm so sorry. That's
Thank
one of
you.
the hardest things people can ever go through, the loss of a child. I can't even imagine. What helped you process that or grieve through that? Was this all related to your own healing, or did you go through like a separate grief process that helped you turn into who you are now? How did you handle that immense grief with your
I
son's
mean,
passing?
we're only in like it hasn't even been 4 months yet. So like
Oh,
I'm
wow.
still
Recent.
deep in grief. You know what I mean? So honestly, I feel like the last 2 years prior to that, I was being prepared because I
Wow.
was gaining all these tools and all of this
Right.
information and developing a
Working on
life.
yourself.
Yeah. And so when it happened, immediately I just anchored into the fact that no matter what, I don't deserve a life drowning in guilt and remorse and shame
Yeah.
over this. Like, yes, as his mother, I can go, there are thousands of decisions that, given the opportunity to do differently, I would. I would have said that before he died, though. Like, I already had so much remorse over decisions I made from an unhealed place versus, this healed place. Like, I don't see the world through my wounding the way I once did. And I parented from my own fear and my own shame. So, yeah,
Hmm.
that has a negative impact on kids. I did a lot right, too. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
ultimately, as much as we want to believe we get so much control over our children and how they turn out, we really don't. So, like, I'm fine if I don't even spend time thinking about the people who judge about the decisions I've made or losing a child to an overdose or any of that because, well, honey, you just haven't gotten where I have. Like, that's fine. Your judgment says so much more about you than it ever could me or him because he was a Leo rising. So
Oh,
he was very magnetic and very, the sun just shone out of him. But I think immediately just being like, hey, you're still worthy of love and you're still worthy of all of the joy that you can access in this life. You are still worthy to make all of your dreams come true. And so grief for me has really been about holding the pain of this loss with all of the other things that life has to offer and that you can experience it all at once. I can
yeah.
be hurting really bad and still go to a Thunder game and have a good time. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
go away, but the more
You have
full
to.
your life is, the easier it is to carry that. And I kind of think that grief really just shines a really big spotlight on the things that you already were struggling with. So for me, it's really opened my eyes up to all of the ways that I try to protect myself from people. Like I knew there's been a lot of parallels between losing my dad when I was 15 to an overdose and then my son 30 years
Yeah, I was
later
gonna ask
to
that.
an overdose. So
It's
I
wild.
really looked to that experience to be like, what did I do then? Because that was kind of the beginning of me really pushing people away. So what
Wow.
did I do then that I do not want to repeat now? And that has really informed how I engage with my environment because it's okay that a lot of times like I'm really raw, so it's easy for a well-meaning comment to hurt me.
Hmm.
And for a minute I was really judging myself like, oh, some unbothered person, but now I've really just leaned into my humanity that like, okay, that hurt, and what's our next step? Like no more resisting the idea that things are going to hurt me really bad, because they do a lot. Oftentimes I am hurt by the things other people say, but I'm not taking it personally, and I'm not assigning a bunch of meaning to the fact that they said this thing. I'm just going, ouch, and moving on. That has really helped to understand kind of how I need to be supported in all of this. And I've just learned, like, I have to talk. Like, before I held everything in. I was a person who internalized all of my experiences my entire life because it wasn't safe to share. I didn't feel, caregivers taught me that it wasn't safe to share. Friends taught me that it wasn't safe to share, or at least that's what I felt, because I didn't like the way they responded. But that's because I didn't know how to be vulnerable, and the vulnerability felt icky. So when somebody cared too much about what I said, I was like, gross. This is why we can't tell anyone. That look of shame or pity she just gave me, no one needs to pity me. And it's like, oh my God, they felt compassion, but I couldn't handle that. It was like, oh, you're seeing too much of me, and I don't like that. So I've really tried to just talk openly about things. I don't share every piece with everyone, because not everyone is safe to share with. But like at home, we talk very openly about him, and I cry very openly in front of people. I have put my crying face all over the internet. I don't care. Like, I'm just trying to show people this is how you get it out. You can't shove all that stuff down and think you're going to have a healthy life, because you're not.
I agree. By the way, is that what inspired you to start your own podcast and share your story?
No, I started my podcast. It'll be 2 years, April 29th.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I'm a yapper. I always wanted a podcast. I actually went on this school counselor. She's got this really big podcast. I went on her podcast that year that I was quitting my job to promote one of those children's books that I wrote. It solidified it. I was like, I'm doing this. I'm doing it. And so I started one.
Oh, okay. Amazing. Yeah, I'm similar about that. Maybe it's the Leo moon thing. I'm also
we need to be seen, Natalie. We got to be seen. We have this visibility thing. Give me a
for
stage.
me, like a large part of why I started the show was to not only share my story, but mainly to help others going through tough times, because I feel like we're in a very dark time in the world.
Yes.
There's so much doom scrolling and negative content, and there's a lot of people going through tough times, whether it's a loss of a loved one or a hard breakup, or, trying to date in these crazy times. And that was essentially why I started the show. Was also, I enjoy talking. I like to talk, but really to inspire and help others, and just be some uplifting content out there, because we've all gone through hard times. And I think especially in this era of social media where everyone is trying to be perfect, we're all really craving feeling seen and
connection.
And inspiring, uplifting content, and knowing that we're not alone. So sounds like we've gone through some similar experiences. I want to talk a little bit about just trauma. I know we talked about trauma in the intro briefly, but do you do that currently with your clients, or do you have any sort of specialization in trauma? Happy to just talk about trauma in general. But because I know you mentioned, like, in the past, people really saw trauma and PTSD as just like, oh, that's something that soldiers go through. It's just related to the military. What have you seen shift in terms of like how we now are aware of trauma and how we're now coping with it and dealing with it?
I think the big shift that I see and feel in my innate understanding of what trauma really does to us is, I think when we're thinking it's done something to our brain, which it has, but I think we think it's an intellectual process to deal with the trauma. And what I learned is it's actually created a huge separation, to put this very simply, between you and your body, and you and your true self. Like every little trauma that piles up, and then all of the things that we do to confirm the subconscious narratives created from that trauma, more and more and more separation. So truly, when we can learn, that's why in my framework, which I'm not plugging that, but truly, that's why the first step is quiet the noise. Because if you can't get your brain to shut up, you can't connect to yourself, because you're still just, call it dissociation, call it zoned out, call it fighting in your head, call it rumination, call it overthinking, whatever it is, you are up here in your brain, and that is not where we need to live.
Bitches in the attic.
Yes, we have to be in our bodies. I say, be where your feet are. Like, I was a person who was getting lost in my own house. I don't live in a big house. And I couldn't make it from the bedroom to the kitchen without stalling in the hallway, like a dementia patient being like, what are we doing here? Not knowing why I was walking that direction because I was so in my head at all times, just full of half of it being consumed with what a god awful human being I was, and the other half fighting with someone at all times, creating some conflict, because that's what our brain likes to do. It can tie into a thought spiral all day, every day, and get
Yeah.
that false sense of control because it's an endless loop. And your
Yeah.
brain loves an endless loop. So
Very
truly, that's
powerful.
what trauma does. The more separation it creates between you and your true self and you and your body itself, the more you're up in your head just living from a place of autopilot. And if autopilot is your subconscious and your subconscious was fully programmed by all the negative stuff in childhood, how great is your autopilot going to be? Like,
Right.
it's telling you to act from danger, from fear, from scarcity at all times. So
Yeah.
dealing with trauma really is about learning how to shut your brain up, connecting with who you are, returning to who you were before the world told you all the other versions of you that you needed to be,
Right.
understanding you are perfect exactly how you are right here, right now. Not when you start to heal, not whenever you get to this thing, not
Mm-hmm.
when, right now, literally right here in this moment, you are not broken.
Right.
You're struggling, maybe you're depressed, maybe you're anxious, whatever, but you're great. You are great. And
Right.
returning to that, like, hey, as a human, born with every ounce of worth and value I'm ever going to have just in my existence, and operating from that foundation instead of I have to earn all the love
Earn
and
the
worth
love.
and value in this world. No, it's right there. It's in you. You have everything you need right here, right now. You might
Mm-hmm.
need some better information. You might need some tools. You might need a therapist. I don't know. Like, you might need some help. I'm not saying you don't, but you, who you are at your core, is beautiful and wonderfully made. And
Yeah.
you can attack any of this stuff. And there is so much hope on the other side of trauma. The people that
Mm-hmm.
I work with, which I am not, I swear to you, I am not plugging myself as like a whatever, because really that's the smallest part of what
Well,
I do. But very quick, rapid changes. I see shifts in people in weeks' times because all it takes is the right information. That's why I'm telling everyone else about Troy Love's book. I don't get a
mm-hmm.
dime off that. Like, I promise you, that book
Right.
changed my life, and I want you to read that
You
book.
want to
If you're
help others.
struggling, go get that book. Like,
Yeah.
that's what I'm here for, is just to tell people in real time. That's why I'm open about my grief with Jake. In real time, I'm grieving him. Like, he was
Yeah.
a beautiful, precious 18-year-old boy who bought something thinking it was one thing and it was another, and now he's gone. Like, we as his family
Was it
are going to grieve that.
was it fentanyl, by the way?
It was not. It was a new thing. That's why I've been all over the news,
Oh,
because
wow.
it was called cyclorophene, I think. It's a new synthetic opioid, and
Oh,
it's 10
geez.
times more potent than fentanyl and Narcan
Wow.
resistant.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I have a relative. She also died from a fentanyl accidental. She thought she was doing, I think, coke or
Mm-hmm.
something at a party and turned out to be fentanyl. And she died
Mm-hmm.
like that day or the next day.
Yeah.
It's wild, very scary. But I do want to focus on the positive. Like I said, the uplifting side, much as we can get into the dark place. About going back to trauma and everything. So do you have like a particular style of therapy? I know there's a lot of like EMDR. I actually started doing this newer technique with my therapist. It's called Blast. I'm not sure if you've heard of that one.
That.
It's newer. It's very interesting. And it's all about just like accessing the subconscious mind, because exactly as you
Mm.
said, like those patterns and the big vat of the subconscious mind is so powerful. And I actually, in my last episode, we even talked about how something like over 90% of our lived experience is coming from our subconscious, which is
Yeah.
pretty insane to think about. But do you have a particular style that you use with your clients to work on the trauma or PTSD? Is it like, do you do EMDR? Do you have a certain technique that you find most valuable?
No, not really. I think we can get really wrapped up in that stuff. Like, for me personally, I'm really just teaching from my lived experience. So I make all my clients buy that book. I
Yeah.
will give my clients my workbooks for free for some extra tools, but I want them to understand their wounding. I want them to understand their shame. So we start with learning how to get out of your brain. Like, let's figure out all the ways in which shame is showing up in your life and how this wounding because your wounding really is creating all that subconscious stuff. So that's the foundation. We got to understand how that was created. When's the first time you felt that way? So I do a lot of shadow work with my clients and just really, when's the first time you felt that? Like, and where did you feel that in your body? Like things like that. And so I just I really like work off what I'm hearing. So like, I don't go, let's go back to the past. Like they don't come in and just start telling me all their deep. I ask a few pointed, like, I want to know kind of their parents' parenting style. I want to know how many siblings they have in their birth order and, any of the major traumas. But other than that, we deal with the here and now, but how it's related to those. So they basically will come in and I'm like, okay, what's going on this week? And they tell me, well, I'm hearing shame. I'm hearing fear. I'm hearing scarcity. I'm hearing protective factors. And so we just go in on that and we relate today with where that came from, change the belief, and it changes everything.
It's very interesting. There's a lot of talk now about how trauma is kind of stored in the body in a way that we can't always reach. How do you explain that to your clients who are maybe stuck in their heads? Like, do you do anything somatic? I know there's so many different approaches to that.
Yeah. I try to keep that part really simple because it can get overwhelming, I think. And so when you learn how to shut down shame, because most of what's happening in your brain is that, and you understand, because you got the super avoidant people. My husband's one of those people. He's going to disassociate at the drop of a hat. You know what I mean?
Attachment styles.
Yeah. So, in that way, some people have a very hard time just being present in general. So I try to keep it really simple. Like I start with 3 times a day, having an alarm, do belly breathing with your hand on your belly so that you can feel the rise and fall. There's a connection to your body and literally just start to feel the sensations. Like, do your toes feel anything? Not for any reason, but you want to just feel because your body's doing all these things all day, every day that we're not even recognizing. And then eventually with that type of work, you start to see when I have this emotional response, my body feels like this. And then you start to see your body as like a signal, like it's letting you know. It becomes a part of your intuition. It's telling you, it's teaching you. So just really making those connections with your body. And of course, I preach about gut health. Not that I'm like so great about, doing any of that. But yeah, just light somatic teaching. Because I do more like psychoeducation around that because I want them to find what works for them and develop a hygiene around what they feel the capacity to do.
I mean, I think it is all accessing the subconscious mind.
Yes. Well, and your nervous system. I mean, because that's what it's all about is regulating your nervous system. So thankfully, there's so much information out there about how to do that.
And there's so many modalities now to healing trauma, which is great. I actually did a process called TMS therapy. I'm not sure if you've heard of that. Transcranial magnetic stimulation.
Wait. Yes, very recently.
Yeah, so I actually just did the process January and February. I want to have a whole separate episode about it because it was like the best thing I ever did. But they actually at the clinic do something called ketamine therapy for people with PTSD, especially. And like I said, I do EMDR for some of my trauma, and there's so many techniques. Yeah, it's always changing. Yeah. Okay, we are almost out of time. I typically every episode I do like a little rapid fire section. So just answer with the first thing that comes to mind. Rapid fire for this next.
I'll do my best.
Okay, so coffee or tea?
Both.
You like both? Okay, nice. Are you a morning person or a night owl?
Both.
I'm more of a night owl personally. Are you an introvert, extrovert, or depends on the day? I think I know the answer.
Depends on the day.
Oh, really? I thought you're such an extrovert. No.
I mean, I love to talk and but then I require a lot of isolation to recover.
Oh, okay. Okay. Fair. And what's one word to describe your inner world right now?
Peaceful.
Wow. That's great. Considering everything that's going on. That's impressive. What is one belief about healing you used to hold that you've since let go?
Ooh, that it's really hard.
You don't think it's as hard now?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, true. I mean, I don't know. It can be. It's slow, but
it's slow. Yeah. I mean, if you're going to judge it, but like I thought it meant a different kind of work or something. Yeah. Yeah. And it's painful because you actually have to like acknowledge your feelings and address them, but it's not as painful as all the things I did to try to avoid them.
So true. Yeah. Okay. What is the most dangerous thing we tell ourselves when we're grieving?
Ooh.
It's a hard one.
Yeah. It's hard to word. I think
the pressure of like, you need to be healed by now.
Maybe that there's a right way
to grieve.
Yeah. I think that's dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's a wide range of normal. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I think everybody tends to think about the stages of grief and that it's like linear, but you could go from one to the other to the other. Like,
Well, let me
back
just
and
educate
forth.
you on that. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, the one that everybody refers to for the stages of grief, wrote that book for dying people. It was really the grief in
Oh,
dying, the stages of dying and the grief that that person goes to. I'm not saying that as a place of judgment. I'm just saying she didn't know all that. And it really put all this pressure on people to, and like
grieve a certain
that's
way.
actually something that's a huge trigger for me. Is like, oh, so you're in that stage. There's not
Yeah.
stages. There's emotions.
Right.
There's the things you're allowed to feel. We have a wide range of emotions in life. Grief is going to highlight that stuff. So I think that the people around us are just so afraid of us when we're grieving. You know what I mean?
True. Yeah, very true. What is something that looks like self-care but is actually avoidance?
Ooh, I love this question. Shopping.
In one sentence, how do you quiet the noise in our own minds?
Deal with your shame.
Shame is the biggest, like, deepest emotion that's going on.
That is the noise. That's all that noise is shame.
And does a lot of that shame come from childhood, like learned?
All of it.
Mm.
All those, because again, your brain is trained to program to the negative bias. So it doesn't know how to keep you safe other than to find the danger in everything around you. And with your ego as a child being the front and center, everything that a parent teaches, whether they have the best intentions or not, the child will receive as criticism. So even if you didn't have the big T traumas, everybody's got this stuff. Everybody's got shame. Every single person on this earth is walking around thinking I'm too much and not enough.
Not good enough.
Yeah, I at my core am fundamentally unlovable. I am a fundamental screw up. I have the weight of the world to carry with no one to help me. We're all carrying it around. That when you tap into the oneness, you really see we're all saying the same things.
Very true. Yeah, I agree. Finish this sentence. Grief showed me blank.
How much I push people away.
Now finish this sentence. Embodying the light means blank.
Being really in touch with your own magic.
That's a great answer. And finally, what's one piece of advice that you have for someone going through a tough time right now? What would you tell them?
I would tell them, hold on. It can and very much will get better. You just need the right information. It's not as hard. Yes, there's work. And I know that it feels really scary and really powerless and really hopeless and really helpless, but it's not as hard as all the things you've done to try to avoid it. It's not like you need to go inpatient for 90 days. Your flaws are your magic. They're not all these things that you need to change about yourself. They show you who you are at your essence. Love them, embrace them. They're your best assets.
I also think, and we didn't even get into this with the Kabbalah stuff I mentioned, but it talks a lot about pain. And I heard this really amazing quote about pain recently, which was that pain can either become your prison or your passport.
Yep.
It can either, keep you like stuck and trapped, or it can become a portal to something even better. Because I think a lot of us don't grow or change without experiencing some level of pain.
You can't. You have to have the contrast. So the things that I maybe used to take for granted before, I no longer do, because in the darkness, it showed me what light is. I had to experience profound darkness to see the light, to see that see what abundance really is, what joy really is, what peace really is. I had to go through turmoil and suffering, and now I know the difference. So contrast is the only way to access any of that. So your pain is your purpose. You'll figure it out.
Do you think that's because we're much more motivated by pain than pleasure?
Probably. On a human level. I think there's probably other spiritual reasons, but
yeah, I think pain.
No one changes when things are good,
Exactly. Well, and it makes you feel like, wow, I really need to change because I don't want to feel this way anymore.
Exactly. Whereas when that's where I was. Yes. I was desperate. I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, same. And I think when you're, comfortable, even if you're not suffering that much, but everything's, hunky-dory or just kind of staying at the baseline, you're not motivated to change. Because why would you?
Right.
It's good enough.
Why would you? Because change is scary.
Yeah. The unknown is scary too.
Yes.
Uncertainty. People are I think more afraid, the devil is better than the devil you don't know. And
absolutely. The pain of change has to become less than the pain of staying the same.
Yeah. So true. Well, Melissa, thank you so much for this conversation and for your time. Also, thank you for the courage to show up the way that you do. It's really inspiring. To do this work publicly while you are living it privately is not a small thing. And I think everyone listening should take note and heed your advice. We didn't save the world today, but we had a really interesting conversation about something that I think matters just as much. We made the noise a little quieter and the light a little easier to find. If something in this conversation stayed with you, whether it was something about perfectionism, visibility, grief, or just the permission to be a work in progress, I'd love for you to share it in the comments. Tell us, what resonated, where you are in your own journey. We're all in this together. And like I said, and Melissa said throughout this episode, we're all here. That's part of why we're sharing our stories, is to help others who are going through a tough time. We really do want to help make the world a better place. Melissa, before we go, where can my audience connect with you, find your workbooks, or keep following your story?
The very easiest place to find me is on Instagram at melissa.hepner, which is spelled weird. So check the show notes for that. But
Okay.
all my links are there. I have a link tree. You can get to anything, both my podcasts to my website, all the things are right there. So that's the easiest way.
Okay, amazing. I will link that in the show notes. So thank you so much for being here again. For all my listeners, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with someone who might need it today. Sometimes the best thing we can do for the people we love is just pass along the right conversation at the right time. Thank you all so much for listening to Natalie Saves the World, one podcast at a time. Have a beautiful day, and I'll see you all in the next one.